News on television reported that the second princess of the Vermilion Kingdom, Stella, had arrived in Japan. She was accepted into Hagoon Knight Academy in Tokyo with the highest score in history and was even called the most talented and strongest knight. Ikki, who was watching the news, quickly turned off the TV. He thought about how some people believe life was unfair because what someone was born with could decide their future. Talent or no talent was something set from birth, and it felt like unchangeable fate. Those without talent would never defeat those who had it, so in the end, they had no choice but to give up on their dreams. Ikki remembered the words of his great-grandfather Ryuma, who had told him not to be bitter when he realized his own weakness. That advice was proof that Ikki had not given up on his dream. Holding on to those words, Ikki summoned his sword Intetsu. He was a blazer, a special kind of human able to summon weapons formed from their very soul and use supernatural techniques through magic. Blazers recognized by the international organization were given the title of Mage Knight. Ikki's dream was to become one of them. After training with Intetsu, Ikki returned to his room only to find Stella there wearing nothing but light clothing. Shocked, he froze for a moment. Stella, equally surprised, became furious when she saw him. In his panic, Ikki clumsily tried to make things even, which only made the situation worse. Stella, angry and embarrassed, immediately slapped him. Because of that incident, Ikki was summoned by Kurono, the headmistress of Hagoon Academy. She explained that Hagoon had always been the most prestigious knight academy in Japan. Every year in the Seven-Star Festival had decided the strongest knight, Hagoon's representatives had almost always taken the championship. But lately, the academy's results had declined. That was why she had stepped in as headmistress, determined to restore Hagoon's glory. However, she had not expected Ikki to get involved in such an inappropriate misunderstanding. Ikki explained that it was just an accident. Kurono, though skeptical, questioned why he had reacted the way he did. Ikki admitted his behavior had been clumsy, but he tried to take responsibility by apologizing directly to Stella. He promised he would do whatever it took to make up for the mistake. Stella, still upset, initially wanted to spread the story, but after hearing Ikki's promise, she decided to forgive him only if he was willing to face the consequences. She teased him with an impossible demand, but Ikki refused, saying the accident was not worth such a punishment. Stella became more offended when Ikki downplayed the situation, and her anger flared. She called him a lowly commoner and threatened to unleash her power against him. Flames appeared around her as her fury grew. Ikki, frightened, desperately tried to calm her down. Stella accused him of violating her dignity by barging into her room and looking at her in a disrespectful way. Cornered, Ikki blurted out that he had looked at her because he was genuinely captivated by her beauty. Hearing his honest words, Stella was caught off guard. The flames around her fizzled out and she blushed in embarrassment. She wondered how Ikki could casually say such a thing. Ikki, meanwhile, insisted that the room was actually his own. Stella did not believe him until Kurono returned and clarified that from now on, they would be sharing a room. Both Ikki and Stella were shocked. Aki questioned why an A-rank student like Stella had to share a room with him, a Class F student. He admitted that the techniques he could use were limited to low-level physical enhancements, and his magic power was average at best. In other areas, his ability was at the lowest level in the academy. Kurono explained that this was why Ikki was nicknamed the worst one, the weakest student in Hagoon. The reason he and Stella were paired together was simple. There was no student weaker than Ikki, and no student stronger than Stella. Stella asked what would happen if more misunderstandings came up between them. Kurono pointed out that Hagoon had other cases of male and female students sharing rooms, so if they could not accept it, they were free to leave the academy. Stella reluctantly agreed to the arrangement but set 3 strict rules for Ikki. He was not allowed to talk to her, look at her, or even breathe near her. Aki was dumbfounded, especially by the last rule, but Stella explained she did not want him invading her personal space. She even said he could sleep outside the room if necessary, which led to more bickering between the two. To settle things, Kurono reminded them that knights solved conflicts with their swords. She proposed a sparring match where the winner would decide the room's rules. Akai thought it was a fair and reasonable idea, but Stella was certain that a failing student from Class F could never beat her. Eki, however, believed that anything could happen in a match, especially since he had trained tirelessly up to this point. Stella agreed to the duel, but she raised the stakes. The loser would have to serve the winner. Ake protested that it was going too far, and eventually they reached an agreement. Kurono declared that the duel would take place in 1 hour. Stella really could not understand why she had to face Ikki, who claimed he had worked so hard. She remembered how her mother once told her not to train too much, but little Stella had said that her small country needed a powerful magic knight, and she promised to control her strength. Stella was very confident that she could defeat Ikki in the match. As Stella walked toward the arena, the students around her were talking about it. They were surprised that the great Stella was about to fight the one known as the worst one. Kurono herself did not expect Ikki to finally agree to the duel. Ikki's goal was to win the 7-star festival because if he could win it, he would be able to graduate even with poor grades, just as Kurono had once explained to him. Ikki was certain Stella would also join the festival, which meant sooner or later he would have to face her. Kagami, a member of the school's magazine club, even showed up to take photos. When Stella entered the arena, she mentioned that she knew Ikki was not allowed to join sparring classes because his ability was below the minimum standard. She advised him to stop dreaming of becoming a magic knight. Even though Stella's words had some truth to them, Ikki refused to back down from the match. He believed that hard work could surpass talent. Those words reminded Stella of someone she had defeated in the past, someone who claimed that being beaten by a gifted person meant effort did not matter, something Stella strongly disagreed with. The match was about to begin, and Kurono explained that the purpose of training battles was not to hurt opponents but to fight until the other could no longer continue. The devices used were set in training mode. As soon as the battle began, Ikki summoned his sword Intetsu, while Stella brought out her blazing weapon, Leviathan. Both of them charged at each other. Stella explained that the fire from her sword burned at 3,000 degrees Celsius, and if it hit, the risk was life-threatening. She swung her sword toward Ikki, but he quickly dodged. Even Nene, who was watching, was surprised by the intensity of the duel. Throughout the match, Stella kept attacking, but she did not expect Ikki to block her strikes so consistently. She praised his defensive technique. Ikki admitted he was struggling and pointed out that her swordsmanship showed she was not only gifted, but also someone who had worked hard. Stella appreciated his observation but was certain that her techniques could not be read so easily. At that moment, Ikki stopped one of her attacks. Stella was shocked to see that he could mimic her movement after observing it only once. The truth was that nobody had ever trained Ikki, so he had taught himself by carefully analyzing others. By studying deeply, he believed he could understand techniques to their very core and eventually surpass them. That was Ikki's style of swordsmanship. Stella attempted to feint, but Ikki calmly said that her swing was too slow and he easily blocked it. He even recognized that the move was not part of her usual sword style and advised she should not rely on tricks. His counterstrike landed, and for a moment, the students thought the fight was already over. Stella stood back up, however, and this time she poured her magic into her weapon. She explained that she knew Ikki's Intetsu would not be able to hurt her unless she fought him with her sword. Stella admitted that if she fought Ikki using only her swordsmanship, everyone would realize she was not just talented but also trained with dedication. Still, she decided to acknowledge that if she won, it would be because of her magic. With that, she resolved to face Ikki with her full power. Ikki, who had long accepted that he lacked natural talent as a magic knight, refused to step back. Stella then unleashed her full power, Cafeteria Salamandra. Ikki, meanwhile, focused on his own secret technique, always thinking about how the weak could defeat the strong. He called it Itoshura. When Stella launched her strike at him, Ikki suddenly moved with blinding speed, dodging the attack. Stella was stunned by how fast he had become, as if his magic had spiked all at once. In truth, Ikki had poured all of his magic into a single burst, focusing every drop of his energy into 1 minute. That was his original noble art. With that, Ikki's blade reached Stella, knocking her down. His belief was simple. To overcome the strong, the weak had to push themselves beyond human limits. Soon after, Ikki himself collapsed from exhaustion. Kurono then announced that Ikki had won the match. The entire audience was left in shock. Nene, watching with a smile, commented that the upcoming selection tournament was definitely going to be exciting. After Stella regained consciousness, Kurono came to see her in the student infirmary. Stella admitted that it had been a long time since she had felt the sting of defeat. She asked how Ikki was doing. Kurono explained that the technique of releasing all energy within a single minute could only be used once a day, which meant Ikki must have been far more exhausted than Stella. Curious, Stella asked what had actually happened. A student like Ikki should not have been ranked at level F. Kurono explained that rankings were determined only by a blazer's raw ability scores, so skills like swordsmanship or martial arts were not considered in the evaluation. Because of that, the system at the time did not favor Ikki's strengths. Stella was still puzzled about how Ikki could end up repeating a year. Kurono told her that there were many difficulties, or rather, the kind of simple but unfair problems that often showed up. Ake had faced that unfair system over and over, but he never gave up and continued to train his abilities with conviction. Earlier, Stella had once said that she wanted to study abroad because staying in her home country would not help her grow. Because of that, Kurono suggested that she follow Ikki's example so her time in school would not be wasted. Later, Stella returned to the room and saw Ikki fast asleep. She gently touched his back. It was the first time she had ever touched a boy's back. Suddenly, Ikki shifted in his sleep and his body pressed down on Stella's hand. She carefully tried to pull her hand away, holding herself back from making any noise. As she noticed Icky's shirt slightly open at the stomach, a brief thought crossed her mind to reach out, but she quickly held herself back. Remembering how Icky had once seen her in an embarrassing situation, she wanted to even the score, so she lightly placed her hand on his stomach. The moment she touched him, Stella felt a strong surge of energy flowing from him. Surprised, she muttered to herself why she had even done that in the first place. To her shock, Icky suddenly woke up and asked what she was doing. Startled, Stella screamed in embarrassment. After that, Stella sincerely apologized to Icky. She admitted that she had judged him too quickly, and that if she had tried to understand him beforehand, she probably would not have lost the way she did. She openly acknowledged her defeat. Icky then asked if Stella was now ready to fulfill their agreement, since the loser had to follow the winner's orders. Stella had no choice because she did not want to break her word. With frustration, she said that she would follow any order from Icky. Icky, amused by her expression, laughed. To Stella's surprise, Icky's order was nothing more than asking her to become his roommate because he wanted to be closer to her. Stella's face turned bright red when she heard such a straightforward request. Icky told her he would cancel the arrangement if she was uncomfortable with it, but Stella quickly stopped him. She said she would go along with it, insisting that she was only carrying out his order. Still flustered, Stella asked Icky to call her by her real name. From that moment, the two of them agreed to be good friends.